Neighbor tried to exploit HOA loophole. Another neighbor was more clever. I shared this on another sub and thought someone might appreciate it here. Not my story and not sure it's pro, but makes me smile. In an old neighborhood with narrow streets, the HOA didn't allow parking on the street overnight. A neighbor put his boat on a trailer out there and then took off the wheels. Somewhere in the bylaws the word parked was defined as something with wheels. He found it and decided to test it, and couldn't understand why everyone thought he was an ass. His boat blocked half the street and was an eyesore. His wife was embarrassed and begged him to move it. He just smirked at everyone and thought he was clever. It sat there for weeks. Finally, another neighbor bought used trailer wheels off of Craigslist and put them on the trailer while the guy was at work. By the time he got home his boat was towed. He never brought it back. I always felt bad for his wife. Now to the comments. My aunt was treated like shit from people in a HOA because she was renting a home in one. She didn't know it was a HOA and they didn't allow people to rent out their homes. The guy she rented from found a loophole that allowed him to rent a room and just give access to the rest of the home with the room rental but prohibited one room, so it technically wasn't renting out the home. Anyways, there was a lady who showed up one day in a wheelchair and she got out and was measuring all of her lawn with a ruler because they weren't allowed to have grass over 5 inches tall or it was a fine. My aunt recorded this lady for over half an hour standing up, crawling around and checking every spot on the front lawn. She then sent the video to the lady's work and workers' compensation and the lady was 100% ducked. She was fired from her job and forced to pay back a shitload of money for workers' comp fraud because she was off work for back pains. Wait, so she was measuring your aunt's lawn? This is extremely common. Retired people have so little to do, they can spend time doing this ridiculous level of duckery. My absolute favorite HOA revenge story involved a guy and a radio antenna. He was getting into the amateur radio and had built a small antenna in his backyard, maybe 6 feet tall. The HOA did not appreciate that and sent him a notice to take it down or else. Instead, he raised it a few more feet taller. So, they sent him a fine, which he ignored. And every time they did, he raised it a little bit taller. The way I heard it told was that the antenna was 20 feet tall and professionally done by the time it was over. Of course, its power never changed. Then the HOA took him to court for the unpaid fines. This was the point at which he finally informed anyone of FCC regulations regarding amateur radio and how, yes, they do indeed supersede any kind of HOA regulation or local law. They got nothing, and he came away laughing. OP replied, "The president of one HOA I lived under put up a TV dish on his roof even though it was against the rules. Someone complained and the president tried to force through an exemption for himself. The rest of the board would not have it." Lol, the funny thing is that last time I checked the FCC has rules guaranteeing access for satellite TV receivers. As far as I know, and HOA can't do shit to you about it. Edit, yeah. Pretty much the only time it can be restricted are for historic properties or for safety reasons. I appreciate you not writing a paragraph to explain when and why you moved into the neighborhood, another to explain the character of the boat guy, another to explain how wild the tire guy was, another to explain the kind of boat. Good story. Why not just get the owner fined for improper storage? OP replied, "I guess that wasn't in the rules." HOA aside, it should violate city ordinance. I wonder if this is the guy who parked a Sherman tank for similar reasons. OP replied, "That's what made me think of this, where I originally posted. I mean, nice story and all. But we're supposed to hate HOAs around here. I think the HOA's badly worded law was in fact the problem." Sure. My comment was more tongue-in-cheek than anything else. The story is okay. But the density is _A+. It's because of guys like him that HOAs even exist. OP replied, "I have property on a lake and an idiot wanted to put a cigarette boat on it. The lake was way too small and the town asked for our opinion. Everyone showed up and said they didn't want it. The town said no, so he went to the county and they said yes. He took the boat up the lake once at full throttle and almost beached it. It was a family house and he made his siblings sell so he could get his share and buy a house on a bigger lake. What an ass. I don't understand why anybody would want to live anywhere with a HOA. The state of your neighbor's home often has an effect on the value of your home. As such, groups of homeowners will often voluntarily agree to give up certain rights to protect everyone's financial interests. For example, many people are prepared to give up the right to keep 3 broken-down pickup trucks on their front lawn in exchange for a guarantee that their neighbors have to give up that right as well. They are less common in Canada as those issues are generally addressed by municipal bylaws, making private HOA agreements unnecessary. This HOAs generally aren't a bad thing unless you get bored, power-hungry people involved, who try to turn the neighborhood into their own personal kingdom. HOA usually sucks, but for people like Boat Guy, I'm glad their rules are around. Duck HOAs. OP replied, "This one wasn't too bad and they were in the right. I've never bought an HOA property where I didn't have access to their bylaws and financials before closing. Do your homework or don't buy in a neighborhood that has one. I had a 20-foot flagpole out front flying the red, white and blue, and got a letter from the HOA to remove it. And another. And another. But I did my homework before I put it in. When I refused to take it down, they finally came to visit. I went out front and played them for a bit, then I pulled the pole out of the conduit sleeve I built into the concrete. I looked at the vigilantes and said paragraph 3 says no permanent flagpoles. They walked away.